Okay.
Can you hear it?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi,
Right.
ladies. This is Mocha Mommy here, bringing you another video. And I have a live stream today. And today we're just really going to talk about survivor stories. I don't want to paint anyone with like a victim narrative, but rather a story of women who've overcome really challenging circumstances, life circumstances. And they're going to really give you, ladies, some of their background and history, and then what are some of the things that they've done to create a better life for themselves and create a better future trajectory, so that if any of you are experiencing some of these things or are close to someone who's experiencing some of those things, you can direct that person in a helpful way and provide something constructive. So I'll first start by having you ladies introduce yourself. Eve, can you start?
Hi, I'm Eve. Big fan of Mocha Mommy. Just started out listening to her. I don't have a plug-in right now, so
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is the Afrocentric Woman. I have a channel here on YouTube. I'm also a fan of Mocha Mommy, and I love helping Black women. I'm very pro Black women and children.
Okay, thank you. And I love your channel too, Afrocentric Woman. You give such great advice. So first I'll just start asking you guys a little bit about your childhood. Eve, can you start?
great. Okay, I'm the youngest of four. My I was born in Long Beach. I was born. My father was he had a lot of mental problems. He was a part of a group in San Francisco called the Death Angels in the 70s, where it's a book called Zebra Killings. My father was a part of Zebra Killings, where they murdered a lot of white people, innocent white people in San Francisco. A lot of shootings. My father was involved with that and had to go into protective custody. This happened right before I was born, because I was born in '79. Um, he was able to get off when he basically turned his friends, his brethren, in for reward money of 10 grand or something like that. There was four of us. My mother finally left that relationship. She was constantly being beaten. My father would just drive her to the hospital. She was 19, so she was pretty young, so she didn't know any better herself. But we ended up moving to San Bernardino. She was a single mother of four children. I remember chocolate milk from, we would go to the Salvation Army for chocolate milk and things like that. But my mother, she had a thing for drug addicts. So, we had men in and out of the house. And, touching my sister. My sister, she was 3 years older than me and was way more developed. And my mother just did not want to let this guy go. When my sister confessed to my mother what he was doing to her, my mother said, you just don't want me to have a man. And I was witness to this. I remember I was 7. So I remember walking, we had a 2-bedroom apartment in the projects. And I remember just walking up the stairs and seeing my sister topless and this grown man hovering over her. But my mother just refused to believe it. To this day, she doesn't believe it. She's now married to him. We moved. I wasn't molested and by him until I was 18. But his brother, um, my brother and I was playing karate and would sleep on the floor, and I woke up to his brother. Of course, my mother, was not going to believe that. I already knew she wasn't. So I pretty much kept that to myself. So we were always in and out of hotels. We lived in a lot of motels. I'm talking about rat motels, roach motels, ant motels, flea motels.
Wow.
They moved a lot. And I remember being a kid, being afraid that we were moving because maybe he stole drugs from a drug dealer and we were going to get caught and we were going to be murdered. So it was my mother, she did like the chaos. She really did enjoy the chaos of being in this relationship. Everything we owned was stolen. We didn't, school wasn't that important to my mother. We sometimes didn't go to school. We act out. If you were ever in elementary school, you had that play section with the toys. I stole every one of those toys.
Wow.
Because my first experience of stealing was her husband. We saw him steal. So, we thought that was pretty normal. And after a really good beating, I was sent to Orange County, another part of Orange County, to a home where they sent troubled kids, and being tied to a bed, constantly being tied down. You're treated like a criminal in these places. And my mother sent me and my sister to live with my grandmother in Houston. And I thought, well, I had an inkling that it wasn't going to be better. And, sure enough, it wasn't. I always felt like I was always a human punching bag. My aunt was very upset. She was not even that much older than me, but she was very upset that my grandmother, she was no longer the baby. So then I took on that abuse, constant beatings all the time. And she would recruit my sister into the beatings, where I would be literally laid on the bed naked and would just have belts and stitching cords all over my back and on my body. But I couldn't, I tell my grandmother, which she didn't really do much of anything. And, coming from California, where you go to like a lot of schools that where there's barely anyone who looked like you, to coming to a school in Houston where they're paddling and there's fights every day. I wasn't much of a fighter. Couldn't fight, so running home from school every day. And my aunt, she used to use that as a way of abusing me. Well, if I didn't get home before my sister did, she was a mile away from school. I was 2. If I didn't get home before she did, I would get locked out of the house and get another beating. And I would go to school with, my aunt used to love for me to pull out my hand so she can beat my hand with belts and different objects. So I'd always have these swollen hands, fingers just completely swollen. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is how it is. And then my mother and her husband came back to get us. And of course, I didn't know at the time that she got us, because, the other ones were too old to get, she couldn't get, government assistance with my other siblings. So I thought, oh, that she's bringing me back. Yay. And of course, I remember one time I was walking down the street. We were walking down the street. We're homeless. And I found something in the dirt. It was like some cash. And I picked it up. I shook it. And I ran up to my mother and I said, what is this? It was $540.
Wow.
They love that story. $540. We were able to get our first house in Houston with that money. It didn't last long, of course, because, she brought her boyfriend at the time, back into her life. So, and I wanted to escape. I said, I just wanted to do anything to get away. So I remember he had all these drugs in a suitcase, and I grabbed a bunch of pills and I swallowed it. And I prayed. I said, oh God, please forgive me, but I just can't take this anymore. I was probably about 13, maybe 13. Except it didn't kill me, obviously. I woke up. That was the first time I knew what hallucination was.
Okay. Wow.
I didn't know what that word meant. I woke up seeing all kinds of stuff, and my mother didn't understand. She thought I was trying to get out of school.
Wow.
I was like, no, there are flying translucent spiders chasing me around the house everywhere.
Wow.
It was just, it's funny now. It wasn't funny then, okay? Because they look real. They would just come and chase me into the kitchen, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and then they'll just disappear. And my mother was constantly giving plasma. And of course, that's when a nurse came over to me and asked me, what did I take? And to my mother's like, There's nothing wrong with you. Why would you do that? There's nothing wrong with your life. You're young. Moved back to California again. And of course, things never really got better. My brother and I, we ended up joining a cult.
Wow.
Uh, so there's two.
Yeah.
Just to find a place to belong, because that was the only time I actually had friends. We were very awkward. We didn't have friends. I spent all day at the Boys and Girls Club. We didn't have friends or anything. So all we had was this cult to invite us to things, and I had to sell kittens to get their tithe money,
Wow.
and they really wanted money. They loved money. They're
Mhm.
still around in California, and of course, pretty much all around. Um, I didn't even graduate at the time. I didn't graduate from high school because, things got so bad at home. My sister, who was no longer living at home, who was now married, trying to get pregnant, said, come to Houston, come live with me. I'll help you out. I'm 18. She's like, you can just finish school here. Okay. Hopped on a Greyhound bus, just some luggage, just some bags. Come
Mhm.
to Houston. My sister drops me off at a shelter.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. I was like, what is going on? I have never been away from home like as an adult. I never paid a bill. My mother didn't teach us how to do things. You have to learn everything else and there was no internet back then.
Mhm.
So now I'm in Houston, living in this shelter with young people, scared out of my mind, homeless. Because my sister was like, oh, yeah, come here. That's why nobody can ever tell me to move somewhere ever again. Okay. Actually, I'm homeless. I'm trying to work, trying to learn how to do that. And that just wasn't working out. Of course, I fell in love with my first Dusty because that was my first boyfriend and lost my virginity and everything. And the next thing you know, I had to get out of there. My sister got me kicked out. She knew that telling them that I was suicidal would get me kicked out on the street. So I went around to different homeless shelters until I ended up in Job Corps. Met another Dusty. Realized I didn't want to be in a relationship ever again. Because the dude was just so obsessed, didn't want me to have friends. He didn't touch me because I said if a man ever put his hands on me, I'm going to prison forever. I said,
Mhm.
no, that's one thing I was never putting up with. It was just 7 months, but it was just, he didn't like the fact that I got on birth control. Of course, I know now why that was. That's the way to keep a woman is through birth control. It's through keeping her from taking birth control by getting her pregnant. Because he always feared that I was going to leave him, which I did. I had to get out of that relationship so bad that I joined the military to get out of that relationship.
Right.
And after the military, I ended up moving to Austin. It was around September 11th, and then I joined a cult.
Wow.
That's two. I was alone. I was lonely. I didn't have relationships with my mother at this time. I didn't keep in touch with my sister because of what she did, and she ended up turning to crack cocaine after having two stillbirths and being with an abusive husband. And so I needed to belong. I really needed to belong, and I wanted to be this. I was wild in the army. Wild, constant parties, constant clubs, drinking. Had a lot of sexual harassment, a lot of sexual assault. So I wanted to get my life together. And oh God, if you find me a church, I'll go there. Next thing you know, I'm in a cult.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and I had to struggle. Um, and they kept you poor. It was just constant poverty. I had to sneak and take classes at the community college. They demanded 10, 15, 20% of your income, and they kept you busy. You were there, Wednesdays, Fridays, twice on Saturdays, twice on Sundays.
Mhm.
That was pretty much your life. And they would take, and you know how they do with women, promise you oh, we're gonna, you're gonna find a husband, and you guys gonna, he's gonna be a man of God, and it kept you celibate.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like straight dry
Mm-hmm.
celibate for many years of being in this cult, and of course more dealings with suicidal thoughts and things like that, because I was like, okay, why would God put me here? And oh, God brought you here to help you, and they're able to use your past as a way to make you feel guilty and feel like you're disgusting, you're filthy rags, you deserve to the worst possible punishment. If you ever leave us, God, it will not forgive you, and you're gonna, miss rapture, I didn't realize how bad it was, because I mean, they made you feel like your life was better than everyone else's in the so-called world. Living in this world, your life is so much better than theirs. It can be worse, and just one day, I had to get out of that too. But I was in it for 10 years of my life, and I got out at 33. I joined in at 22. I got out at 33, and had to rebuild my life from there. You know, spent time traveling the world, going to different places, and ended up buying my first home, fixing my credit. The relationship department, no, I didn't realize how many sociopathic men that are out there, but I had to create my own new social circle, therapy, personal development books, and reconnecting with other people, so that's pretty much it. A short version of it, of course.
That was a really amazing story. And thank you for having the bravery and the compassion to share that, because, and I mean, I'm so grateful that you had said, like, all the things that happened in your childhood that led you to make decisions of who you would partner with as an adult, and how
Mm-hmm.
things that you saw happen in your home, but then then the boundaries that you recognized in your personal relationship. And I just thought that was so interesting, because I feel like a lot of people understand that sometimes when it comes to like intimate partner violence, that
Mm-hmm.
they it's a grooming process, and some of that grooming process happens before you even meet the guy.
Yes.
And then they don't recognize it in their home life, but they will recognize it in their romantic relationships. And so that's why I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad that you shared that story and made that point, because um, sometimes we don't speak up when it's happening at home, but we know to speak up when it happens in our relationships. And that's sometimes, um, even though I don't think there's a lot of compassion for Black women like there should be, that does
No.
sometimes takes away from the compassion aspect. Like, well, why didn't you do anything sooner? Why didn't you do anything sooner? Because you didn't recognize the grooming process that happened
And
before
when
you
you're
met.
abused at home,
Hmm.
when you dealt with childhood abuse, and then you dealt with relationship abuse, it's so easy to think that it's normal, that this is what love is. Love is pain. You have to fight and work for it all the time. And so it does become normal. I mean, I didn't want to end up like my mother. So my relationships were very short, because I was like, I'm not putting up with this. I mean, because the constant fights and things that I experienced, I started doing, being humiliated in public, and the screaming matches and the throwing things, and the police. I was like, I don't want to repeat that, but trying to escape my mother, I ended up in a whole nother, situation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that.
Hmm.
So we'll let the Afrocentric woman share her story, and then we'll let content creator Angel K share hers as well. Okay, Afrocentric woman.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and just listening to Eve's story, I mean, I just feel a lot of resilience there, resilience and perseverance. And there's something about um, the choices of those women, those mothers, like there's a lot of commonalities with your mother and my mother and their selfishness, just an overall selfishness, for their, I guess, temporary desires in the moment. And it's almost like you as a child don't matter. They don't really center anything around your own safety and security. They just kind of do what they want to do, and um, you just kind of survive the best way you know how. And so, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So, like I said, I have a similar mom. She was really selfish. Between the ages of 0 and 5 was the most violent time of my life. Um, my father is a narcissistic psychopath, and he would abuse the whole household. Um, he would fly into these rages, and he would like tear up our furniture. Um, he would like knock holes in the walls. I was just talking to my brother the other day, and my brother told me that he poured Kool-Aid in his Nintendo. He was just evil like that. Like, he destroyed a kid's Nintendo. Like, that's just the level of evil, you know? And this carried on until I was around 5. Just the fights. But yeah, the last, just seeing him get arrested so many times, um, I felt embarrassed because of our neighbors, coming outside and looking at all the drama, and sometimes having to go to my grandmother's house. There's a couple times my grandmother told my mom, don't go back to him, and so my mom did it anyway. So my mom was too proud to go to my grandmother's house, so we just slept in the car um, a few times because she just didn't want to like face the music, that it was drama, and she just kept going back to the drama. So the final time my dad um went and like had a fight with my mom. He like actually pulled out a gun. He put the gun to my mom's head, he put the gun to my brother's head, and I was really terrified because I really thought he was going to kill my mom.
Oh,
Excuse me.
wow. Oh, wow. You take your time.
Thank you. So so um after that, um, my mom went ahead and filed for the divorce, and um and so she divorced him, and we had to, I think we stayed in some apartments until the divorce was final because they had to figure out what was going to go on with the house. So we just left the house. We pretty much just left the house with what we had. And my dad stayed in the house while the divorce proceedings was going on. And then that got finalized, and my mom got the house. So we went back to the house. But there was like, my mom, like, we didn't have enough money to replace the furniture that my dad had like cut up. So we just put like blankets and stuff over it. Um, we put blankets over it because like the couch and stuff was like cut up, and some of the stuff was just like some of our appliances, like he just like would hit them with hammers. So it's just like just a reminder, even though he's gone, it still was a reminder of the destruction, because you have to look at this like furniture and holes in the walls, like because we couldn't get everything fixed at one time. So we just kind of patched stuff up a little bit at a time. And my mom was like really into decorating and stuff like that. So that was kind of, why my dad would destroy things physically, because my mom liked pretty things. So whatever she liked, whatever you like I said, how he put the Kool-Aid in the Nintendo, whatever was your prized possession, whatever you really liked, that's what he would destroy. Because I mean, he's a psychopath pretty much. So anyway, I had visitation. Um, with my dad, why my mom took me over there, I couldn't even tell you why. I mean, just in retrospect, it really doesn't make any sense. Um, because before I went back, I mean, okay, basically before any of this had happened, there was already allegations that my father was a pedophile, and he had already been convicted of being inappropriate with a family member, a minor child. So I don't know why. I couldn't even tell you why. Just she's just selfish, and I think that a lot of females, underdeveloped females, do things because people said that's what you should do, and nobody wants to protect children, and especially not little girls. And so they will always kind of err on the side of keeping the African American male comfortable and, in place, so they just accommodate their degeneracy and through various ways. And that's exactly what was happening. Um, so fast forward, I think that processing through my start, because my mom had subsequent negative relationships after that, and to this day she still can't get it right. She's still a mess as far as relationships is concerned. But it definitely set me up to enter into exploitative relationships myself, with narcissistic males trying to gain that validation and attention. You kind of get on that energy field, and you don't even know that you're doing it because it's sort of operating in a subconscious, sort of autopilot way. So you don't even know that you're doing it. Now, because I had seen physical violence, I knew what it was. So I knew, okay, I don't play fight, I don't pillow fight, I don't get loud, I don't throw things. I don't like I can't do it because I've seen so much violence that I run away from that. I don't ever want that energy, but I didn't know about financial abuse, emotional abuse. Those are the types of things aren't as obvious because the physical is so tangible and you know exactly what it is. So I found myself in other types of abusive relationships thereafter.
Thank you for sharing that because I think that's so important. How we don't recognize, like I said, how often we don't recognize that grooming process and other forms of it. Like we have these certain boundaries, but then so many other boundaries are violated as far as like how we allow people to speak to us and how we allow people access to us that maybe shouldn't have, or access to our children, or like you said, our finances. So I'm so glad that you said that, you didn't recognize it, that abuse, when it came in other forms. So thank you for just saying that so that we can be more aware of what this looks like on other fronts. So we have another content creator here, Angel K. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Angel K. I like to first say thank you to the ladies for sharing their stories. And I know that this is going to help many women out there. And I would like to say thank you to Mocha Mommy for having this panel for us to share our story to many women out there who have experienced this too. Um, I'm currently 18. I'm in college right now. And throughout my life, I have seen abuse. Um, I grew up, it's just seeing abuse all around me, even with other family members going over their houses and seeing how they were treated too. Um, at a very young age, I could remember both of my parents yelling and screaming, crying, and me being the kid, I felt like I had to comfort them or comfort my mom or protect her. So that really took a toll on our relationship, and me kind of being like a therapist for um, the older parents. Um, my father was very abusive. He was narcissistic, and he would drink a lot. He was probably taking other things too, and he was very controlling. And it's a lot that happened, but just to summarize some of the things that he would do, he was physical, emotional, financially abusive, all of those things into one. Um, he even stopped my mom. He was very controlling. My mom was trying to, get a job, like, go into nursing school, and he prevented her from going to school. She had to sneak while he was asleep or while he was at work or something just to go to school. And and when he found out that she was sneaking to go to school, he called her school and embarrassed her and all these things, and wanted to go to the school to take her out of class. And it was a lot. Um, every single night there was arguments. The cops were called a few times, and it was only called a few times because um, my mom didn't want to call the cops on him because she even told me this. He's a black man, so you know how they are, how they treat black men, the cops. So let's not call the cops on him, even though he was hurting us. He even fought my sister twice, and my sister was only like 14, and he basically, um, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Yeah. It's just like, just talking about it, it just, you see the flashbacks, it's very traumatizing. So he fought my sister, 14 years old, and he tackled her down, and we had to, all of us, I have like, a lot of siblings, and we all had to fight him off. And I even like grabbed a bat. I was like 11 years old, 10 years old. I had to grab a bat, and I was just, hitting him with the bat for him to get off of her. And not only that, but he tried to fight my other sister. But then all of us stepped up and we pushed him back, and it was this big thing. And I can just remember me in the corner just crying and yelling. And I just remember that them telling me as they were fighting, this how toxic and how dysfunctional it was. I just remember my mom saying, "Khadijah, you gotta quiet down because people are gonna call the cops." So it's crazy because we had to hide it. We had to hide everything. I couldn't tell no one. It was like a secret. And I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to think. It's just a lot. But basically, there was a lot of abuse, and it even got to the point where I want to give a trigger warning. This is very triggering, but it even turned into like sexual abuse. He sexually assaulted my mom many of times right in front of us. He R-worded my mom right in front of us as she was screaming. And there was many nights where we would wake up to our mom like fighting him back. And I just remember as a kid, me having nightmares, waking up, just hearing his voice. And there's a lot that happened, just a lot. Physical, he even hit me with a belt so hard that my legs started bleeding. He used to chase us just to hit us, and it was a lot. And that's just giving you like a summary, a picture of the things that we dealt with. A lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, everything. Belittling my mom, belittling us, calling us all the words in the book. And what that has done to me as I gotten older. So around, just honestly, if I'm being honest with y'all, with everyone here, it was 2 years ago that we got out that situation. My mom decided to finally leave him. She left him many of times, but she always came back. We even lived in a women's shelter. Um, so when she finally left, now we're far away from him. Thank God. And um, yeah, she didn't want to leave him because she thought that, oh, if I leave him, then my children are not going to have a father, they're going to grow up in a broken home, da da da. But you know leaving and having not having him there was much better than even having him there. But what has that done to me? I'm still on my healing journey, and I have noticed, as I'm, reflecting and, trying to heal, I have noticed that whenever I hear someone yelling, I tend to like tense up, or I start to having anxiety or panic attacks. I struggle with social anxiety too. If there's a lot of people, or I with males, I'm very like scared around males. And throughout like my high school years, middle school years, even now that I'm in college, I just never dated. I never um, you know, wanted to be in a relationship because of what I saw. And also other people in my family, other women in my family who have gone through similar situations. I have seen that whenever I would go over their house, I would see the toxicity that they were also in. So it was just a whole cycle throughout my family. So that's my story.
Thank you so much, Angel K, for sharing that story.
Thank you.
And please make sure that when this live stream posts, that in the comment section you post your channel so that we can follow you and support you. And I'm really,
Thank you.
really happy that you just decided to share. And I specifically wanted to make a point to have someone who was young on this panel to talk about these things because, like I said, so much of that grooming process happens at home. And so
Yes.
sometimes that's what leads us to either get into challenging relationships or sometimes not get any relationships at all. Cause I just
Yeah.
even remember when I was posting like really like simple online dating tips, one of the biggest points of feedback that I was getting was safety, because this is such a legitimate concern. Like, not, they didn't have safety in their home and they don't think they can go about having interpersonal relationships in a safe way. And that's when I started realizing, like, okay, there's a much deeper issue here that we have to talk about. Because it's not just about this quote unquote choose better, but really it's about like what's happening in the circumstances that young Black women are growing up in. And I'm so glad that you had talked about your story growing up, because like I said, a lot of this grooming process happens in our homes before we even get out there in the world. And how many women in the comment section had said, I still have residual fear from my childhood. And so the question that I have for you, Eve, is about what were some of the things that made you realize that your home life wasn't normal? Like, what were some of the things that made you realize that?
When I was a kid, I didn't grow up around. At first, I did not grow up around a lot of Black people. So most of the kids I was around were white and Hispanic, and I noticed they had dads. I'm like, they have dads. Where's my dad? They had dads. They had the Christmas presents. You know, I wanted a bicycle. I wanted a tricycle. I wanted a scooter. Those Barbie cars. Those little Jeeps. I wanted one of those, and something was just wrong. We moved around all the time. I couldn't. I'm supposed to invite a friend over to a motel room. That's not normal. I wanted to have my own room like a regular teenage girl. I didn't go to school dances. I knew that wasn't. I didn't have that. I knew how awkward we were. We couldn't communicate very well with people because we weren't around people that much, and I knew that was not normal. Who wants to live in motels until they're 18? We didn't have a regular house. So those were the things that I knew. Sleeping in our car, you know, that just it just wasn't normal. And I remember one time, my mother and her husband, they would have us sitting in a parking lot. We'd be in a parked car, when you could leave your kids in a car back then. They would be running out of Sears with a microwave. Even I knew then that was normal. Who runs out of Sears with a microwave? So those are the things that I just didn't make any sense. And I didn't want that life for myself when I grew up.
And Afrocentric woman, what was it that made you realize that, okay, this circumstance is not normal? How old were you when you realized that?
I remember from a really young age because I would be really embarrassed um, with things would sprawl outside, and it became a spectacle. So I mean, even as I mean, like that was like from 0 to 5, so it's somewhere between 0 and 5. I knew that this was not normal, So it's like, but even after my dad and my mom divorced, like my mom would beat me and my brother. So, I mean, I wasn't seeing abuse, but physical abuse, but I was experiencing it from her. And it really was over the top. It was just, it was over the top. When Angel said something about bleeding legs and a belt, I'm like, yeah, I know. I've been there too. And I knew that wasn't normal. I had other friends. I mean, as far as my black friends, I think we all kind of joked about being beat and stuff, but with like I went to school in the suburbs. We moved out of the hood. So, you have classmates that aren't getting beat, and that's not normal. Like, and I knew like my mom never came to the school for like PTA meetings to support me in choir or Girl Scouts or anything that I did. She wasn't around, and I knew that that was strange because other people's moms was involved, like, or even a field trip, like even other working mothers, they couldn't necessarily be there for everything, but maybe they volunteered at field day, or maybe they volunteered at like we had a school social or something. Just seeing other people's moms particularly getting involved with their school and extracurricular activities, and my mom never did that. I knew that wasn't I knew that wasn't normal. And I knew we were poorer than other people. We did move to the suburbs, but we moved to like the most the outskirts of the school district, right? So we were like in there by the hairs of our chinny chin chin. And so I went to school with a lot of middle class and wealthier people. I knew I was poor. I know it wasn't like in a shack poor, but I knew like sometimes we ate hot dogs for 7 days in a row. I knew that wasn't normal. I knew I was supposed to probably be getting like two vegetables and a meat. And sometimes we just didn't have it. So I would eat like hot dogs every day until, you know, um, got something better. Because it was like my mom always made too much for food stamps, but not enough to keep food on our table either. So I knew that wasn't what other children were experiencing.
Angel, when did you realize that your circumstances were not normal?
I realized that it wasn't normal when I enjoyed going to school more than coming home. And on the weekends, I would dread, being home. And I would like, oh my God, I can't wait until school starts back up. School was like my my safe haven and my escape from everything. And also, when I would say when I used to like, I knew it wasn't normal when I used to see other families and the father was nice and they had a nice, a healthy dynamic. Whenever I used to go over a friend's house, I was like, wait, what? That's how it's supposed to be. Like, I was really shocked that they weren't yelling at each other or anything like that, or they would go out, because during that time, we never went out. We were always stuck in the house. Never, go out to family, going out, to family, as a family to restaurants or going to the park together. It was none of that. It was always home or them at my parents at work and we're just home. And our only escape, well, my escape would be to watch TV. I lived through the TV, seeing other, families do things and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, I guess that's only on the TV. But then when I went over my friend's house, it was, if they took the parents like, oh, she can come over. I would see how, okay, maybe it's not in the TV. Maybe this is reality. This is how some people live, just not me. So I was like, this is not normal when I come home. So that's how I knew that my whole situation wasn't normal, although I grew up in it ever since I can remember.
Thank you, Miss Sincere, for sharing your story and for your super chat. That I got pregnant at 19 by a 35-year-old Dusty. I am 29 now, married to a wonderful man, but I try to be thankful to God and not have any regrets. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I just think that the other part of this live, we're going to really talk about, the hope and healing side of what these ladies have been through. But what are some of the resources that you ladies have used to help you escape the situations that you were in, whether they be with your family situation, romantic situations, or like Eve said, the cult situation? What are some of the resources you've used, places you have gone, and things that you've done to help recuperate and escape those situations? Eve, we'll start with you first.
Meditation. I find a really good a meditation temple in your city that you can go to. I know right now we're in a pandemic, but I will go to a meditation temple for free classes. I'll meditate on my own. Um, I would listen to a lot of audiobooks, trying to, mostly for me, it was books where people overcame being in a cult situation, because that really helped me to have hope that there was hope that you can live a normal life eventually, that it wasn't just going to be doom and gloom for the rest of your life. Also meditation, like I said. I also, some of the YouTube videos on personal development, healing, learning critical thinking skills, self-love. Um, so mostly that has helped me out a lot. Eckhart Tolle, he has a book called The Power of Now. It helps you live in the now, and to not allow thoughts to just come in and to create a dialogue. Because you know how sometimes you have a negative feeling, but then you will put a story to that feeling, which will make you feel worse. So, creating letting some thoughts in that you can't control, but not allowing yourself to have a dialogue with those thoughts to make you feel worse. Eckhart Tolle, you can find The Power of Now on YouTube.
Now, Afrocentric women, I know that you've had challenges in your childhood and in your personal romantic life. So, what were some of the resources that you used to help escape from the situation?
In as in adulthood, Mocha Mommy?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. But resources that you suggest women should look to help themselves escape from these situations.
Okay. So I can echo Eve on The Power of Now. That was actually the first audiobook that I used. I think that's like my first like enlightenment-esque book that I read, and the woman who suggested it to me at the time suggested the audiobook. And so this was a long time ago, so it wasn't on YouTube. I actually bought the CDs, I think from eBay or something. I don't know. This was a long time ago. But yeah, The Power of Now really did help me a lot. Kind of separate from, the book calls it the pain body. And I think it's just all that accumulated darkness, and you don't know the difference between the darkness and yourself until you become an observer or of life, and then you can stand back and you can look at the darkness and you can decide what you want to do with it. And so then that kind of put me in a phase of being the observer and the decider and the action taker in my own life, instead of sort of being just driven by uh, emotions and feelings that I didn't have, such a good grasp on. And so around that same time, I really don't remember the name of the workbook, but I did work through a workbook that was really, really helpful. And this one was a workbook on like sexual survivors of childhood sexual assault, and that book helped me a lot get back into my body. When you are a victim of childhood sexual abuse, you can have a lot of dissociative tendencies, kind of floating outside of yourself and things like that. And you kind of like, it can go either way. Some people shut down and don't engage in intimate relationships at all. Some people are promiscuous, or they kind of go, and there's everything in between. But either way it goes, if it's not healthy and happy, then there's some level of dysfunction to it, right? So that kind of like going through all those exercises really helped me, and it helped me understand that, I'm a kid, as a child, you don't have agency of yourself, because a lot of times if you don't get any help as a young person, you think everything is your fault, even with abuse, with parents splitting up and everything. So that was helpful. I've done so many retreats over the years. I've done professional development. I've done women's rites of passage. I've done a lot. Um, I did Queen Afua's Sacred Woman. That was somewhat helpful. I mean, now with my eyes, I do see there's some mammying in there, so I will. I'm gonna give a. I'm gonna give a disclaimer on that. Kind of disregard everything she says about relationships with men, but the part about just healing your own womb and creating your womb story, that part is helpful. But she is a baby boomer, so she does have a lot of mammying philosophies. And then most recently, has been very helpful for me is a book called Taming Your Outer Child. I want to say the author is Susan Anderson. And that was really, really helpful for me in terms of, just getting over I guess, the information. Hold on, what am I trying to say? Understanding like the inner dialogues and still, coming up with the trauma. I've done therapy throughout the years, but the very last therapy that I did was EDMR therapy. That's specifically for survivors of trauma, because I just felt like cognitive behavioral therapy it wasn't it wasn't getting to the heart of the matter. And it's really like, just from a philosophical point, they don't spend a lot of time on trauma. They're just, oh, what's going on right now? What are you doing right now? Like, how's life right now? Which that's somewhat helpful. But when you're having flashbacks, about past trauma, and when you are, you know, walking around with these issues of self-worth, what is my self-worth? I've always had a high self-esteem, but my self-worth wasn't where it needed to be. And I knew, like, I got a spiritual download that that is the challenge. You know how to leave at a relationship that's not working for you, but you don't know how to pick a relationship that can work for you. And you don't know how to navigate that, because I have issues of self-worth. So I started to dive in on that and really, really build up my self-worth. There's a meditation that I listen to called You Are Lovable. Um, it's on, there's an app I use called Insight Timer. So you can download the free version of that from your Play Store, and I listen to that all the time. And sometimes I'll go to sleep and I play it, just enough so I can kind of hear it in the background, and I'll drift off to sleep hearing that you are lovable, because I knew that the source of everything that I was struggling with constantly ending up with in exploitative relationships with males, it had everything to do with my worth. Why don't I walk away faster? Or why don't I have, certain standards? Like, it was the self-worth that was lacking. But, reading the book, Taming Your Outer Child, helped me go back into time and to process those times where I began to understand I'm worthless. When you are shuffled from place to place, when you are not, no one's coming to your events to support you. No one's asking you how your day is after school. Nobody cares that you're sad. A child internalizes the idea that I'm not worth anything. That's why I'm getting dragged around like a rag doll. That's why nobody cares. You feel like nobody cares about you. And so I had to go and clean all of that up, and so that my self-worth could match my self-esteem. So that's something that really helped. And oh, another thing that was really helpful for me was understanding cluster B spectrum disorders, and understanding narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy, and not bipolar, but borderline. Because both of my parents are on the cluster B spectrum. And so going through the narcissistic abuse awareness community and hearing other people's stories, very similar, it helped me understand how narcissistic people move around. And I'm not, you know, just being savvy to to see it for what it is, and to get in the game of life and understand that you're going to have to encounter these personality types, and you need to have a strategy to get through. I mean, you may even have a narcissistic person at work. You need to know how to navigate them and manipulate them the way they manipulate you, so that you can or just how, even if it's just gray rocking or icing them out, that's a strategy too. But understanding that there are certain people who are not sincere the way you are. If you have a big heart and you're sincere, and when you're extending friendship or relationship, that it's coming from the heart. But understanding that there are people out there that see you as a resource to be exploited. And so becoming really savvy about that, and that helped a lot. Like, when I tell you a lot, because I feel like, from hearing the stories that we're sharing here today on the live, and I know so many other, like, Black women who've gone through very similar situations. And what's holding all of this up? Black male worship culture, and self-sacrificing mammy mothers that sacrifice their daughters and children for their own, desires.
Yeah, thank you for like sharing those resources that helped you, and for just reaffirming why we have to kind of definitely understand um, people's certain pathologies in their mindset so we know how to navigate them. I know that I've kind of touched on certain things about, like, the mindset of sometimes of the Gen X males, right? That I grew up around. And also, like, seeing some of the dysfunctional things around us in the Olympic Games. Like, just knowing how to recognize that behavior is the first step, and knowing how to protect yourself from it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And Angel K, what are some of the things that you've used to help, that are helping right now in the process of healing yourself, and moving forward? Because I know that this is just recent for you, that it's just recently that your family has transitioned out of these really harmful situations. So what are some of the things that have been helping you on your journey?
The things that have been helping me on my healing journey, I would say my mindset and how I view the situation. Um, I changed my mindset. I used my situation as motivation to do better for myself and to work hard and to, um, pursue more, and also go to therapy and heal, because I have seen, um, if you are not trying to heal, or if you have not healed, it can manifest itself into different ways. So that my situation inspired me to seek help and to talk about my situation, and hopes that it will help other women too. The book that has really helped me was The Four Agreements. I really do recommend this book, The Four Agreements. It As soon as I finished the book, I read it in one day. As soon as I read the book, I felt this sense of like relief. It's a really good book, so I really recommend, if you're on your healing journey, please, or if you are starting your healing journey, please read the book. Um, I also started to practice self care and just words of affirmations, because growing up in that situation, I lacked so much self worth. I, you know, I, I couldn't even function. I thought I was the source of all the problems, and it was just not good. So I started to listen to words of affirmations. You can go on YouTube and search words of affirmations. They have some that you can listen to. You can listen to them while you're studying or driving or anything like that. Just hearing positive words, it's so important, especially during your healing journey. Um, Another book that I suggest is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Um, Growing up, it's really hard growing up in that situation, because although your parent has done you wrong, you kind of still feel like, no, you try to be like, oh no, they're not that bad, or oh no, they did this and this for me. You kind of feel guilty for talking about the ways that your parents have done you wrong. You feel kind of guilty about it. So Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, that has helped me to really confront, the facts. Hey, they did this and that, and what they did was not right. So that has really helped me. Another thing that I did, I started to talk about my situation. Before, like literally a year ago or 2 years ago, I wouldn't have talked about it. Nobody knew. I used to go to school and smile, be the loudest person in the class. You wouldn't even know that what I was going through at home. You wouldn't have known that. I never talked about it. Not even with close friends. None of my best friends knew. So just recently, I started to reflect on it and talk about it. I talked to my close friend about it, and she never knew. And she listened. And that's why it's so important to have supportive people around you. Cut off toxic people in your life, whether that be family members, whoever. You have to create distance or set boundaries. That is so important. So I'm really happy to have my supportive friend. When she listened and she sat there, she just listened. And that's what I needed. I needed to express what happened. I never talked about it. So when I was able to talk about it, now I'm more comfortable with sharing my story because I had to take that step of opening up to talk about it. Um, Another thing. Oh yeah, because I didn't talk about it. The reason why I didn't talk about it because there's a lot of shame that comes with growing up in an abusive household, and I know that it can be hard to open up about it, but I believe that's the first step is confronting it. What happened. I have also started journaling about my life story. So basically, writing down my whole life story on a notebook. And as I'm writing it, I I have like a paragraph or whatever. After I finish writing that one, I can't write my whole life story all in one day. So I take it,
Yeah.
one day I write this much, next day I talk about that certain situation that affected me. And once I'm done, I turn the page and I write down my adult self and what I learned from that situation. And I try to understand that situation, not through the lens of me as a kid, but me now. And I changed the narrative. I changed the narrative in, okay, you know what, this and this happened. And now I'm stronger. Now I'm, I try to change it into a hero mentality. Like I overcame that. So that has really helped me is my mindset and writing down and reliving those situations is going to be hard, trust me. Like you're going to cry. I was crying, I had to take breaks because it was a lot, and you start to see flashback, it's a lot, but you have to confront it, and that's what helped me. And now I see my life story as, you know something. Yes, a lot of bad things happen in my life, but it made me who I am today. And now I'm going to strive hard to become the best person I can, the best version of myself, mentally, financially, career wise, with my school, loving myself, and having supportive and positive people. That my life story motivated me. I used it as motivation and rewrote the narrative. um I started, and also I joined support groups, and I started another thing that I'm still in the process of doing it, is starting to forgive those who hurt me. And forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Forgiveness does not excuse what they did. That's something you should not do ever. That's a bad, I feel like that's a bad mindset to have, to excuse them. You can understand someone actions, but you should not excuse them. But just forgiving, and also forgiving yourself. I think there's like um a lot of shame when you're growing up in this type of situations, especially as a kid. You start to take on the burden. So it's just like, forgiveness. And forgiveness can look like different things. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you got to talk to them ever again. I have cut out family members. Although I forgive you, you're not coming back into my life, you know um yeah, so I'm still in the process of that. Trust me, you're gonna go through anger, you're gonna go through crying, you're gonna go through many processes, and I'm still on that journey. Yeah, and also I'm seeking therapy. That also helps too. And I think I already mentioned this, but please cut off toxic people in your life. Please do that, and set boundaries, and take some time to love yourself, and to do practice self-care. And that's my advice.
And
Yeah.
that's amazing advice from somebody who's only 18. you know,
Yeah.
um, just to take the time to care for yourself and to recognize what's happening in your own life and what it's going to take for you to heal, and know that it's a journey, and knowing that, um, you know, and setting boundaries, that's so hard, because people are always seeming to come to us for the compassion, for the can you hook me ups, and the they're always expecting and feeling so entitled to our time and to our energy and to our resources. And it's okay to shut off the
Mhm.
phone during certain times. It's okay to not go to certain events because they're triggering to you. It's okay to not have certain family members in your circle anymore, or to give certain people your address, or to only meet with certain people that, even though you're blood related to them, it's okay to only meet them in public places that are busy and there are people around if you do have to interact with them, because we do know that boundaries are important, because it's those private moments where people are always trying to exploit you. And so thank you so much for just saying that and giving us permission and saying it out loud to set boundaries, because I feel as if that's something we're always made to feel guilty about. Like,
Mhm.
well, why don't you talk to them? Or they're your sister, or that's your mom, and how could you? Like,
Yeah.
not that we need permission, but I think sometimes when we articulate these things, it helps to empower one another. And I think that's why I'm so grateful you ladies shared your story, because sometimes we're afraid to admit it. And then when we don't admit it, other people can't learn from it, won't see the warning signs, and won't see a way out of it because nobody talks about it. So that's why I'm so grateful that you ladies are sharing your story. So, we've been on for about an hour. So, Eve, um, what would be some of the things that you would suggest going forward when recognizing that there is unhealthy dynamic in your personal or family life? What are some of the ways that you suggest um, Black women and girls um, cope with, deal with, succeed from these issues? What are some of the things that the biggest best piece of advice you can give?
I would say get to know yourself really well. Know your triggers. Know your limits, what you can and cannot handle. That is so important. Learning to say no. No, I mean, because when I left my coat situation, I had a hard time standing up for myself, um, telling people how I really felt. I mean, you need to take some serious time to be alone and to learn what your triggers are. Learn what your limits are. Um, learn, get as much into personal development, as possible. Learn the ways you were manipulated. One of the things I did was I learned everything about manipulation, gaslighting, just everything. So I can learn how not to keep falling for the same thing, because I am like an empath. I had to learn how to dial that back, keep my business to myself, stop being an open book, respect my own privacy, respect my own boundaries. Because you know how it is when you can keep everyone's secret, but you can't keep your own. You got to learn how to keep your mouth shut. You got good
Mhm.
things going for you. Don't tell everybody. You know, um, Try to find people, whether it's online, maybe join some meetup groups, join some social clubs in your area of people that are doing the exact same thing you are doing. Okay. Whether it's, we have markets here where there's so many Black women, beautiful Black women that are selling products and is doing all these wonderful things for themselves. Go to these places, get to know some of them, because then you will have, because it's like, even when you get around, because people say, oh, get rid of all the toxic people, get rid of all the people that do this and family members, but then you're left with no one. And
Mhm.
you need that kind of encouragement. So yes, meetup.com is another great place. Join that. There's Black women everywhere doing all sorts of things that you want to do. Try to be around people that you can see that is better than you, that you can learn from, that you can emulate, because that teaches you better social skills, that teaches you better coping skills. These are things that you most definitely, and yeah, learn everything you can about psychology, human behavior, even because we always look at dating advice, but you're right. A lot of people don't talk about the safety involved, how to protect yourself. knowing when you're being gaslit. Everything was about how to be cute for him and how to do this for him, and learn the triggers, learn when people say this and when people say that. What does that actually mean? So that right there would help you catch things like that. I mean, I started learning to catch things like that when someone's trying to bait me in an argument or someone's trying to, you're able to start catching things more because that right there can help you break the cycle of being taken advantage of, especially.
Right. And I'm so glad you say that because we're always talking about who we're cutting off when we're quote unquote divesting, but what we have to add back in, like what we have to add back in. We need to add a good support system back in. So thank
Yeah,
you for
like one
saying
of the
that.
oh sorry. Yeah,
No, no,
because
go
like
ahead.
one of the things I learned is that I need to be around women who pushes me. Not the yes men, yes women, not the women who don't really care what you're doing, but the women who say, no, no, get off your ass. You're better than this, you can do this, you can do that. That's something that I was most definitely lacking because I was just around people that just didn't care. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to work hard today. Oh, you could just take a break. I needed to be around people who were go-getters. Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think one of the things that's why running clubs have helped me because I felt
Mm,
like every time I found a chapter, I always knew that I was going to find friends. And two, I was going to always find a rabbit to chase, somebody to give me something to focus on when things were
mhm.
stressful.
A
So,
project.
yeah, I am so, so glad that you said that.
Yeah.
Afrocentric woman, what are some of the things that your hopes for Black women who are survivors? What are some of the things that you would suggest that they do moving forward so that they can just, I know that you talk about living life healed and abundant. So, what are some of the things that you suggest to some of the women who are listening to this live now?
Some of the things I would suggest would be the self-worth piece. Looking at that and seeing how worthy you feel. Because when you do feel worthy and lovable, a lot of things, as far as choosing healthy relationships to gravitate toward and choosing which relationships you're not going to further engage, it becomes really easy and second nature, because you feel a sense of inner fulfillment. And I have found, for me personally, it was the inner child work, and the constant, kind of like reprocessing some of those instances in which you feel unworthy, through the inner child dialogue. And I'm glad we have a chance here on this platform to reach younger women because, if there could be any shortcut that younger women can take so that they don't have to bump their head for many years, you know, um, that would be that would be the best thing, that you wouldn't have to suffer for so many years, or get into negative relationships, because we can tell you no wedding, no womb, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to get there. And if you don't feel comfortable around men, or you don't feel comfortable around, um or you don't feel comfortable dating because you feel safety issues, staying at home isn't going to heal your safety issues. It will just the anxiety will just get bigger and bigger, because it's almost like a muscle that is atrophying because you're not using it. So that, I mean, it's almost like it's a sign, like, hey, there's some more stuff that I need to do. um there's It's kind of like it's pointing to something if you're feeling that anxiety or you're feeling that lack of security. And I think that that's when you go and you do, go into the inner child stuff to figure out what you can do and start getting yourself to trust yourself, because that was something that my godmother told me many, many years ago, and it took me a while to finally get it. She told me, you really don't have to trust anybody. The only person that you need to trust is yourself.
Mm,
And it took me years to really get that. But it is true as women, and understanding that intuition, that maternal instinct, that when you say, for example, I am a good judge of character, I'm a good judge of character, right? And if you believe that really about yourself, then you feel confident to go out and create relationships because you trust yourself that you are a good judge of character. And when you say, I have standards and requirement of treatment, and you really do, then it's easy to go out and create relationships because you trust your standards and your requirements. And so I had to really build up that trust within myself. So I think that if women can trust themselves, that'll protect you from gaslighting, that will protect you from manipulation, that will protect you from people trying to sell you a dream, that will protect you from so much. When you trust yourself, you build into your self-worth to keep bringing that up, and you heal your inner child and give her a hug when she needs one. Because this is not a one fell swoop thing. When it's childhood, it may be an ongoing journey of continue to heal. And it's like you might remember something that happened years ago and you remember it a different way. And now you got more work to do. But it's okay because you have sisters on the journey with you. So you're not alone.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, like that you do have a support system, which is why I'm so glad all of you came through. So we have a Gen Xer, we have a millennial, and we have a Gen Z. And they're all here sharing their story in support of one another and their healing journey. So thank you all so much. And thank you for, you know, that comment. They said this is a Gen Z friendly channel. And if I'm being 100% honest, when I looked at my analytics and I saw how young my audience was, I thought maybe I need to do something different with my channel because why am I getting all these teenagers and young adults? And maybe it's because we need to give younger women these skill sets. And so, Angel K, for somebody who's still on the journey and someone so young, can you tell us what your best piece of advice is, as far as your self healing journey, and what have been some helpful things um, that you're learning right now that could help others?
I would say the most important advice that I would give, if you're going to listen to anything that I've said, I would say listen to like these two advice that I'm going to give. Reflect on what healing looks like for you. I believe that everyone's like journey is different. Be patient with yourself and just know that it's not going to happen overnight. It's a journey. Okay. Do not beat yourself up about that. Just know it's a journey and don't give up and be patient with yourself, and love yourself. Be kind to yourself. Um, Start your self love journey. And this was mentioned before. Get to know yourself. I think that's so important. That's what I'm trying to do now as I'm 18. I'm in college and I'm just starting to learn who I am, and I'm still on that journey and self love journey. So start your self love journey and reflect on what healing looks like for you. Be patient with yourself. On yourself, know your worth, and self love, very important. You deserve to find peace, you deserve love, you deserve kindness, and you deserve to be kind to yourself and patient with yourself. So yeah, those are my two important advices. Start your self love journey and reflect on what healing looks like for you.
Thank you so much, Angel K, and please make sure that you share your YouTube channel with us, because so we can look forward to following you to get some more of your wisdom and inspiration and self-care tips, because I just think you have so much to add to be a
Aw,
young
thank you.
content creator. And
Thank you
Afrocentric
so much.
woman, congratulations on 100 videos. You give amazing
Congrats.
advice. You give
Yay.
amazing advice. And I just want to say, like, I mean, I'm learning a lot from you about like communication, and my last classy clapback live was inspired by you. because I just really think that that's an area where I'm trying to grow. So thank you so much for giving us that. Um, so, and Eve, thank you for sharing your story. I think that took so much courage
Thank you.
to share what it is that you said and to be so honest, because it's going to help us to recognize that look at how beautiful you are and how you have your own home and how much you've accomplished coming from
Thank you.
such a challenging circumstance. And it really is just going to give a lot of people hope. Even as I'm seeing this, I'm seeing other content creators share it. And thank you so much for just sharing your stories, ladies.
Thank you for
And
having
yeah,
me. Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity.
yeah. And thank you guys all so much for listening. And for you ladies in the comments, one of the reasons why I do these is for you ladies, because I want to let you know that you're not alone in your struggle. Okay. That you're not alone with your fear of interacting and some of the challenges that you ladies are going through on your personal and professional and social level up. You're not alone in that. And so just please be patient with yourselves, and just continue to love yourselves and care for yourselves in whatever form that's going to take. So thank you all so much for that. And I'll be having a career live on Thursday. So if you ladies who are still, I know a lot of you ladies are still in high school or early college and undecided. So make sure you guys participate in that too. And thank all of you ladies for participating in this live.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone has a good night.
Thank you.